Welcome to Burn the Ship. This is the podcast where we connect entrepreneurs or professionals that can help you go all in on your business. We talk to people that walk the walk, talk the talk, been through all the things that we experience as small business owners, and are willing to share those skills and experiences with us so that we can run our businesses more effectively. So, thank you very much, Tom, for sharing some time with me, sharing some time with the audience, being willing to teach us some stuff. It does mean a lot, and I really do mean thank you when I say I appreciate you giving us some of that time. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well,
Tell us a little bit about your background and what it is that you do.
yeah, well, thank you, Bailey. I'm a
No
games
problem.
guy. I've been in the games industry my entire career. It really breaks down into three major parts. I was with Parker Brother Games at the beginning, so I got to work on great games like Monopoly and Trivial Pursuit and Nerf and Star Wars. And then the second part of my career was when I was with Hasbro. And there were really two parts of that. One was I was the head of innovation, so I was always going into the marketplace and trying to find new innovation that we could bring into the marketplace. And then the second part was that I founded and was the CEO of Hasbro Interactive. And during that period of time, we grew from my business plan to $300 million in about a 6 year period of time. And probably most significantly was that we were on a aggressive acquisition trail. So I led the company in being able to acquire companies such as Atari, Avalon Hill, Spectrum Holobyte, Microprose, and probably most importantly, Wizards of the Coast, which has turned out to be just a phenomenal acquisition for Hasbro. And then the third part of my career was I've been running Dusenberry Entertainment, and that's been going on for like the last 20 years. And really, what I do is I work with innovators and I work with game companies primarily on finding new innovation to bring to the marketplace, and then successfully collaborate with them to build new brands.
Sure. And what? Tell me a little bit more about that client for you for Dusenberry Entertainment. Is it companies like on Hasbro's level? Is it small? Is it people like me that want to invent a game that is, technology related or physical or a board game? Or tell me a little bit about that process when someone finds you and says, "Hey, I need help with X."
It's Bailey. It kind of goes both ways, and that is on the one hand, I work with innovators and creators, and we work together, and then we present the products to like EA or Microsoft or Hasbro or one of those companies. But there's also times when they come to me and they say, "Hey, we're looking for something in the marketplace. We think there's going to be a high growth opportunity. What can you do to help us, find innovation to be able to bring to the marketplace?" And then I go back and try to find specific people that have a specialization in that area, and then work with them to, solve the problem or create new products.
Sure. What is it that inspires people to want to create a game?
I have learned that there's only one thing that makes games successful, and that is it's all about the fun. And so to me, everything that I do is kind of derived from the fact that I'm trying to create a consumer experience that's fun. And a lot of times people say, well, what is fun, Tom? And I've tried to define it from a point of view to saying that it needs to have some type of theme that you want to be able to support. So like the NFL, if you're into that, those games would be good. But then what I have created was what I call the wow wow factor. And that is that the first time that you hear about the new game, you go, wow, I'd like to play that, right? And then you play the game, and then the most important wow is you say, wow, I'd like to play that again. And if you meet that criteria, that's probably the beginning of something that could be something meaningful in the marketplace.
Sure, absolutely. No, I can relate to that. I am a large consumer of games myself, both electronically and board games physically. We play a lot of those things at my house, and I can understand the psychology behind those things. So tell me this: someone is kicking around the idea of starting a game, right, with no real understanding of what workflow or workload goes into those things. Give me a high level picture of what goes into kind of the research and development side of games, and usually, ballpark of what something like that costs to
Sure.
take to market, at least.
That's a great question, and it's highly complicated. The
Sure.
if you want to build the next Call of Duty, you probably are going to need 30-40 million dollars to be able to do that. On the one hand, on the other hand, if you want to start a new casual game in the mobile area, one or two people can very successfully do that. and launch a product. So there's a wide variety of different ways to be able to enter the marketplace. And when you look at the game business, the first thing you have to do is you have to say, who am I building this for? And in the game industry, there's really four primary platforms. There is PC games, there is mobile, games, there's video games, and then there's traditional games, which are card games, board games, and all those kind of things. So depending on which category you pick, that'll be a key driver for you from a point of view of what you want to be able to bring forward. In this with this audience, because you've got a tech support capability, something like the Unreal Engine or the Unity Engine would probably be a key starter for you from a point of view that it's going to take away a lot of the basic type things that you would need to do to get started with a game, and you can more focus on gameplay experiences and creativity and that type of stuff.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about what makes you different from other people that are consulting in the video game space. I know that you have a tremendous amount of experience and have really worked at kind of every rung in the ladder in the gaming space. But tell me, as someone that is interested in the gaming world and maybe wants to start a game in any of those categories, what experience are people hoping to have with you when they bring you on as, an advisor?
Yeah, I think that's a great question too. I think that where I differentiate myself from others is the fact that I've been in the game industry my entire career. So I've probably experienced just about everything you can possibly experience. But I also think that what I can do is I love to collaborate. And what I find is that because of the fact that I've got this experience, I try to understand what the entrepreneur skills are and what their passion is, and then I try to supplement that with other important things that are needed to be done to be able to make the game successful. And then frankly, from a business development point of view, I don't think anybody has a better Rolodex than I do from a point of view
Sure.
that, I just know just about everybody from a development point of view, a studio point of view, as well as the publishers as well. And kind of work with them from a point of view that I know what they're looking for and I know who the right target audience is to be able to see if we can achieve a successful product in the marketplace.
Sure. And so, what would you say is kind of your superpower in this whole process, right? Like, what is that trait about yourself that makes your business able to go forward? Is it your ability to, attract a network of people interested in the game space? Is it that dense network of people that you are able to kind of leverage as you're helping someone render or a product to go to market, or what is kind of that thing that you have found has always kept your business moving forward since you've been in this gaming industry that's changed so much in the last 20 years?
I think a lot of it is a personal reputation. And that really comes back to if you're going to stay in the same industry for a long period of time, you can't really burn a lot of bridges because those are
Right.
your customers that you feed all the time. So I think that I've kind of endured the test of time from a point of view that I've been around for a long time and been able to stay in the game industry. So I think that's a factor in it. But I also think that I have a love for gameplay experiences. I really love to get deep into the gameplay itself and understand what the nuances are to make sure that it's a really fun experience. So I think that that's really good. And from that, I think that people would say that I'm a good collaborator. I like to work with other people. I like to draw out the best of them, and I like them to draw out the best of me as well. And that creates great product in the marketplace.
Sure. Absolutely. So, what's your favorite game?
My favorite game of all time is a dice game called Can't Stop. And the reason for that is that I played it early in my career, during my entire family experience, every single year we went back to that game to play it over and over. And to me, it's probably not the game as much as it is the memories that I've gotten from
Sure.
it. So I love that. But don't get me wrong, I love Tetris. I played a lot of Fortnite. So I play a lot
Mm,
of those games. And right now I'm addicted to a game called Puzzle Match, which is in the
mm.
FanDuel Face-Off website. So I play a lot of different games and a lot of different variety of games, and a lot of them are my favorites based upon what I'm doing right now. But from a
Sure.
classic perspective, I still go back to those family experiences that create those great stories for us.
Sure, absolutely. No, I can relate. We're stuck up on a couple of games right now. The circle with all the letters and you push the letter down as you say that one is our hanging out with our friends play at our house game, and I am fully stuck on Marvel Rivals right now. I have gotten to that grandmaster level, and I'm just floating around the same the same skill rank constantly, trading games. And I absolutely have that a personality that gets just addicted to the progression that you experience in those games. So from a consumer point of view, that's definitely what I get out of those things, is that the sense of progression, or the sense of really being good at something compared to the average person, is maybe the most addicting thing ever in the history of human beings, right? And so um, what conversations are you having with people that are developing games about the psychology of consumers and how it's changing over time?
The game industry has just every year changes and morphs, and so you kind of need to understand that. And when I first started in the game industry, it was basically boards and puzzles and card games, and the entire industry was $50 million. Today, the game industry is $250 billion. So just to give you an idea of the magnitude of that, the game industry is bigger than movies, books, toys, all combined. So it's a mega industry now. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for from a game perspective. And what I'm seeing is that more and more what's happening is like with Fortnite, it's more than a game. It's really it's a multimedia experience where you can go and you do all your social networking. It's where your influencers are. You can go to a concert. You can actually buy stuff there. And so what we're seeing is that these games are becoming these huge multimedia type of experiences where you go and you have all kinds of social engagement and activities in addition to what the game is. So that's on the one hand that's happening, but on the other hand, just like you said, you can also go out and you can play a mobile game for free, and every three or
Sure.
4 days, if you get tired of it, you can swipe it away and go to something else. So I think that games are very much in the middle of what society is right now, and it kind of depends on what your personality is and what your appetite is for being able to spend time to be able to use that as your entertainment experience.
Sure. Yeah, that's why my mom was 2,500 levels into Candy Crush. No, that makes a lot of sense to me, because I can relate to that. You know what I mean? And I think that it is a huge challenge in the gaming industry to build something sticky, and build something that continues to persist after its first iteration. Right. One of the most interesting things that I know, or just stories company wise that I know about gaming, is Rovio, when they dropped the initial Angry Birds. And how that was just with the like huge integration of Samsung smartphones and iPhone, and being available on both platforms and all those things. I think there was a point where on some Samsung devices, Angry Birds came pre-installed on your cell phone that you bought. And it was incredible, the introduction to microtransactions where people were super okay with, and their initial brand and the experience of that game was so incredible. And then the following iterations, can speak take my opinion out of it. The consumer was far less happy with future iterations of that game, the Angry Birds 2, and then they um, put the original Angry Birds back on the App Store under a different name, so it was super hard to find. So people always found the new stuff with tons of microtransactions and tons of advertising, and um, a couple of movies, and just their brand became this worldwide thing. And they had a couple thousand employees, and then they like laid half of them off and laid half of them off again. So tell me this, I want to know kind of both sides of the coin. I kind of want to know a success story, right? Someone that you've worked with that has accomplished and pushed far past what they could initially understand in their mind was possible with their game. And then I want to know, is there a part in that journey where you have to hand them off? Is it when you introduce someone to Microsoft or Hasbro, or Epic Games, or whatever that is, that really they take the reins and decide what the future of that game experience looks like? How do you find something and turn it into this worldwide brand, and how do you know really when is the time to put the foot on the gas?
So I think the example of a really successful long-term interactive product would be like Minecraft. And the reason for that is that they really stay focused on what who they know who their consumer is, and they continue to just to build on that core value. And I think that that's what the big difference is versus like Angry Birds, because Angry Birds kind of all of a sudden, it changed its physics and it's changed kind of its mentality as it relates to how it was working with the consumer, and then they didn't respond as well as the very first game. So to me, a lot of times you have to stay true to yourself and true to what that core business is. So if you look at if you look in the mobile game business, probably the most successful company from a point of view of getting huge audiences is Supercell. And what
Yeah,
they do is
sure.
they've transformed the business from a point of view that their audience is 500 million people that are playing their games. I mean,
Is it that big?
it's so hard to imagine when you get that big, right? So to me, again, it goes back to they have billions of dollars to invest in it and all that kind of stuff to be able to continue
Wow.
on. But if you're a small entrepreneur, if you could find a niche and you can find 100,000 people that like your game and they're on a subscription basis, you'll be rich as hell. So
Right.
I think you got to kind of determine what you want to do from that perspective.
Sure. What is Supercell's? They're Clash of Clans and Clash Royale, but they have another game that's like massive, right?
Yeah, I think they have 6 games, and Clash of Clans is by far the most successful in the one I know.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think I've genuinely been playing Clash of Clans for 13 years maybe. And I still play.
Yeah.
Um yeah, that's a really really good example. And how do you know when someone is, because I know that, I don't know Supercell's story, right? But let's say they started with a really, really good idea and a handful of people or a dozen people or whatever that is. How do you take something like that when you have the right idea and you pump it to the max? Is that part of what you're having conversations with? Is how do you, like, because it seems like there's a lot of virality in games, right? Like I remember downloading Clash of Clans because it was what the other, like my high school, I think when I was in like 10th grade, gave everyone an iPad so we could all use iPads for learning. And I would walk around and I would see everyone playing Clash of Clans on their iPad, right? So I downloaded Clash of Clans to be part of the community. You know what I mean? So how do when there's a handful of people with a really good idea with some understanding of a level of execution, how do you, what are the things that you do, or at least the things that you think about before you turn yourself into a 500 million player base company?
So the my experience with introducing new games is that you need to make probably 3 or 4 thousand decisions to get to the point that is successful.
Right.
You make one mistake in that, and it can doom your entire game.
Sure.
The likelihood of a game that you do being successful is not very high, just because there's so much competition and there could be a mistake to be able to make that. So I think that you have to have that fortitude. Luckily, in the game industry, we have an opportunity to be able to correct our mistakes and to go back into the marketplace. So I think that if you fail at first, that doesn't mean that you have to give up. You should go forward. I always remember that Angry Birds was, from an industry point of view, was a overnight success after they tried
Sure.
41 games before they got to that one.
Right.
So I mean, there's the shows the propensity of being able to really stick with it. And so I think that you have to be able to do that. I find it's amazing in the industry right now because the game that everybody grew up with, no matter how old you are, is Monopoly. And yet, Monopoly is the top five mobile game right now, Monopoly Go. And what's amazing about that game is that it's closing in now in less than 2 years of doing $3 billion of revenue on all off of free to play. And
Wow.
it's an amazing model from a point of view that what Scopely has done is they've found a market and they've fed that market. And out of that $3 billion, I think they've spent close to $900 million in advertising to get new customers to come in and to stay and to motivate you. So, it's just a huge example of finding a product. They started out and they found a little bit of an audience. They fed that audience and fed that audience and fed that audience and fed that audience. And it
Yeah.
doesn't
Right.
seem to stop and it's continuing to go. And it all comes down to people like that mindless fun of hitting that button and seeing what kind of rewards they get.
Sure. No, I can trust me. I can relate to that. Thousands of hours of my life spent doing those exact things, so I can relate to it. I mean, I understand the psychology that goes behind those things, and I know that those people will forget more than I'll ever know. But I can only understand it from a I relate to it point of view. You know what I mean? But there, it's very very interesting to me the psychology that goes into making people play games and how people understand that and how they're able to replicate that with something that they're very interested in. So. Um, if anyone in our audience is in the space, or if you're interested in being in the space, I think that there's a lot to learn. I think Tom is a wealth of knowledge. But Tom, how can we support you? What do you have coming out? Are there things that you're coming out? Are you creating content, anything like that, so that my audience and myself can support those things that you're putting your time and efforts into?
Yeah, I'm always looking for new innovation. I'm always looking for creativity. And to me, it's bringing together technology and fun. And so, your audience could be the technology side of that, which could be very appealing. I'm spending a ton of time in AI right now, and I think that AI possibilities are just endless. And I think some tech people need to really start to look at that from a point of view of what they may be able to deliver, and then how do we apply that in the market from a game
Sure,
perspective. And you were asking earlier about where the game industry is going, and I just think it's going to explode over the next 10 years, and that is because of the fact that we've got all this streaming activity that's just going to kind of transition the entire business. So anybody that has a technology that can help an audience, or a technology that can enhance gameplay, or an audience that can create a new monetization type of an experience, those are the types of things that I look for, because I know that that's what the big
sure.
global type of companies are looking for, because those are monetization opportunities.
Sure. No, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm excited about the gaming space moving forward in general. I look forward to continuing to be a consumer and to see things that you're interested in, and things that catch your eye and things that you're working on in the future. And if there's anything that we can do to help alongside that process, please let me know, because I think it's very, very interesting. And I appreciate the things that you've been able to share with me about the industry that as a consumer, you just wouldn't know from the outside looking in. So, for anyone in the audience in this space, connected to this space, interested in this space, please connect with Tom. Tom has been very hospitable to me and very, very flexible, all those things. It's been a wonderful experience getting to know you, my friend. And everyone in the audience, please just think about the technology, because I think a lot of the experience that you are going through with the technology of gaming is probably applicable to a lot of different businesses. The psychology of why people consume the way that they consume is always very, very interesting, and more than likely, some of that applies to your business. So, Tom, again, thank you very much for spending some time with us, and I look forward to talking to everyone again soon. And until then, burn the ship.
Thank you, Bailey.